is up, you guys? So I get a lot of requests from you guys from all over the place, like on Twitter and Facebook and all that crap. You guys always want me to kind of give you the secrets for mixing bass and all that stuff. And I understand the frustration. There's really a lot of things we can do to kind of help fix bass and stuff, and I've kind of gone over it, but today I'm going to show you kind of a new one. So in the past, in case you haven't seen those videos or just for, for whatever reason don't know this, you should be high-passing everything that isn't a kick or bass. So right here are my kicks and all that stuff, so, we'll just name that kicks. I don't know why I didn't do it yet. And my bass and stuff is on certain tracks, and I know where they are, but everything else should be getting a nice high-pass filter. So, let me see. In Battery 4, I've used the filters inside of that to cut out the low stuff. This group right here, everything is getting high-pass on the individual tracks. Right here, I'm using this filter called the DJM 800 emulation by Xverse, so it's just the DJM filters, the 800 specifically. You can see I'm just high-passing everything beneath 219 Hertz. Usually I recommend anywhere from 100 if it's, if you have a nice short kick and you want to have a lot of bass stuff, then, maybe 100 to 200 would be a good range to start high-passing everything else. If it's a really subby kick or you just have a lot of low end already, start cutting out things as high as 250 to 300 Hertz. It really just depends on the track, but anyway, just start high passing. So that's from other videos. Obviously side chaining helps, keep the kick and the low end, because most of the low end should be in your kick. If not, if it's in a bass, then maybe consider side chaining to your bass. I mean, it just depends how you want to do it. But in this video, I'm going to show you this way that I do, that I kind of help clean up my low end and all that, and kind of separate out the other frequency apart, so the other frequency ranges, so, low, mid, high. So I've shown you guys this trick before in an old video called Multiband Dynamics. I kind of do an overview of how I use this multiband compressor, and I show you guys how to split the frequencies. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing that we did in that video, and if you haven't seen that video, it's fine, I'll explain it again. But we're going to route everything in our song, so pretty much all this stuff and even my sends are going to be going through this, and I'm going to call this my pre-master, and my whole song is going to run through that, and my master is just going to not have that anything on it. Well, I have stuff on my master for YouTube reasons, but you don't need to worry about that. So I've started to do this very recently on a few of my last projects, and they're really just, I'm getting some great results. Usually this is something I would do in the mixing stage, so I mean right now I'm doing it in the writing process. I'm still writing this song, but usually I would advise you guys to do this in the mixing stage, but whatever. So you can see that if you look at all my groups here, they're all selected, and they're all going to audio 2 sends only. So that means that the sends I send it to, that's the only place it's going to play. So they're all routed to B, and if you're just wondering, inside the groups, I'm not sending it to B again. So, if you're confused whether you should send every track and then the groups and all that stuff, then if you have something in a group, have the audio go to group, audio to group, and then it'll just play only out of here, and then you can route the group to sends only. So don't get confused about routing. And let me see if I have another example here. So it's all the same everywhere. You can see I have this Battery 4. This is not in a group, and it's still going to sends only. So if it's in a group, send it to the group, and then send the group to sends only. And if it's by itself, send it to sends only. So everything goes to B. Even my other send, this low air plugin that I use to give me a little bit of subharmonics for my kick, that's going to sends only. And so this becomes, in a way, my new master. So if I mute this, we won't hear anything. We'll just see the blue faders. And if I unsolo it, we have the whole song playing through here. And, all your soloing and muting functions still work. So if I mute something, I don't hear it. And if I solo it, I hear it. So it doesn't change the way the session works. So once you have everything routed, what we're gonna do, and just this is by the way, this is just a little bit of compression to glue together the whole. Since I have everything going to there, I'd like to kind of glue it all together and just compress it slightly. So you can see I'm getting like less than a dB of gain reduction. So, this is just my own fancy compressor that I like to use. You can use any compressor. Just make sure you're just using it to glue stuff together, like less than a dB of gain reduction, which you'll see on meters or whatever. And my release is kind of slow and my attack is really fast. So, also, long attacks can work well to glue stuff. So, do it however you want. Just use the setting that will glue an entire mix together. Anyway, so now we're going to use the multiband dynamic compressor from Ableton. So, plugins, or no, just audio effects, and then you'll see it somewhere in here. So we're going to just drag it out. We're going to press Command G around it so we form a group. So once you press that, you'll have the group, and then you want to have these two yellow circles lit. So that looks like this. And so you're going to see one instance of your multiband compressor here. So that means you have one. These other two are pretty much copies of the first one, and I just rename them. So I do this also with like synth layering and stuff. Sometimes I'll have like 5 massive like soft leads in one track, so I don't have to have like a whole group for them. I mean, it's the same thing, tomato tomato, but I mean, there's just some cases where it's better to have something in a group, in a chain, and rack. And also, when you have a group like this, you can then throw it into a folder, like whatever folder on your computer, and you can save that rack. So I have this called it's called my pre-master. So right here, it's my pre-master bus UAD2, because it has a UAD plugin, which is the compressor. So now I don't have to make this every time I start a new song. I just throw it right here on Ascend, and then I route all this, and it's done. So if you're in Ableton, start making racks. So this is a folder I created on my computer called Ableton Racks. And when I want to save a rack, I just throw it in. And it works with instruments too, so I have instruments and all that crap. Anyway, I keep getting sidetracked. So once you have your one multiband dynamic compressor, set your ranges. So we're going to set the low range. For me, I like 300 hertz. So everything beneath 300 hertz is the low range. The mid range is everything above 300 hertz, and everything beneath 1K. So 1K is kind of low to be considered the high range. Usually some people would kind of go a little bit higher and give themselves a little bit more of a wider mid, but I kind of like to keep my mid sort of a low mid, and then my high is kind of like a mid to high. So this is kind of like the mid and high, but whatever. You can do these however you want. If you want to look at a frequency chart and look at what proper low frequencies and what proper mid-range frequencies and proper high-range frequencies are, go ahead. I mean, usually some people might put this around 3 or 4K or 2K. 1K is fine for me. I kind of like the way I'm splitting it up. So once you have your settings all done, and by the way, we're not changing anything to this, to the compressor settings. We're not actually using this multiband compressor to compress. We're just using it to split the signal. So when you grab this out of your audio effects, make sure you grab a standard multiband compressor, which I believe is the one that has nothing on it, so there's no compression or anything, and you'll be able to tell because you'll see that these are kind of blacked out boxes. So if you see blue and orange boxes, that means you're either doing you're expanding or compressing the signal. So don't do either of those unless you want to. So now that we have our first, multiband compressor settings the way we want, now we can duplicate it. So just press Command D twice or Control D if you're in PC, and then you'll have 3 exact copies of this compressor right here, and we're just going to rename them. So Command R or Control R if you're on PC to rename it. So call it low, mid, high. And then what we're going to do, so now that we'll have 3, the way we're going to split it is that we're going to select on the low range and we're going to solo the lows. So that pretty much means if I solo this right here, we're only going to hear everything beneath 300 hertz. So we're going to do the same with the mid now. We're going to select the mid, we're going to solo the mid. And then we're going to select the high, and we're going to solo the high. So pretty much, these pretty much only will play their range. So let's listen to the high range for no reason. Now let's listen to the mid range. So make sure you did it right. So even I double check it, even though I know it's right all the time because I must have some sort of paranoia. So low, yep, soloed, mid, soloed, high, soloed. So perfect. Now this is the part that helps clean up all the, bass frequencies and all that stuff. The reason why we split the frequencies is so that we can throw on the utility plugin, which if you're in another DAW, just use a stereo image tool or whatever kind of plugin that you want to use to, make things stereo or mono. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab utility, which again, that's another Ableton stock plugin. Utility is pretty much a stereo tool and a gain tool. So we're going to drop that in. So we're going to make sure we're selected on low. We're going to drop it in and bring the width down to 0. So Ableton tells me that when this is at 0%, that means the signal is playing in a mono format. So it's mono. And so now that we have everything beneath 300 hertz being mono, that's going to help tighten up the low end. It's going to give the mid and the high range a lot of more room to breathe in its own separation. So it's kind of like we're panning out each of the ranges out a bit, and it's giving it space. And it's good to have our kicks dead in the center, because if you play in a club that has like a multi-mono speaker system, which some do, your kicks will still slam really hard. If anything, just being in mono, they're going to be the hardest hitting things ever. So that's a really good way to get some kicks really straight in your face. And you want your low end stuff to be in mono and in the center of the stereo field, because I like to believe that most good mixes have the high range really far out in the stereo image, and then the mid is kind of right in the center, or in the center of the speakers, and the low is in between the speakers if you have like monitors and set up in a perfect triangle, parallel from each other and parallel to you or whatever, and it's like a perfect 30-degree angles and all that nonsense, and it's at your ear level. So whatever. Now what we're going to do, we're going to do the same thing pretty much for all the other ones. And don't mind this filter here. This filter is just cutting out everything beneath 30 hertz to give me more headroom by cutting out all that unnecessary bass. You don't have to do that. I don't always do that. Sometimes I like that unnecessary bass. And so we're going to grab the mid, and we're going to grab a utility plugin. We're going to set it to 100%. And that pretty much means it's just the default. It plays normally, and I added a little bit of gain here just because I wanted more mid. You don't have to do that. Now the high range, we're going to set that to 150%, and that's pretty much it, you guys. So thanks for watching.